There's a reason you feel older than your years. A reason why certain places feel familiar, even if you've never set foot there before. A reason you feel an ache inside your chest that no one else seems to notice. That reason is memory. But not the kind you store in your brain. I'm talking about soul memory. Emotional echoes from lifetimes you thought were gone. And the truth is, they never left you. You see, you weren't just born once. You've arrived on this earth again and again with different names, faces, stories, but the same core essence. And whether you realize it or not, your soul has been gathering wisdom and wounds across time. You've felt it in those strange dreams where you're wearing clothes from another century, in the way your heart races when you hear a language you don't speak but somehow understand, in the unshakable connection you have with someone you just met, as if your souls remembered each other before your minds could catch up. These are not coincidences, they're invitations. You've been invited to remember, and deep down, you've always known. That persistent heaviness? That's not just anxiety. That's emotional residue, karmic weight you've carried across dimensions. It's the argument you never resolved in a past life, the love you lost but never forgot. The promise you made before birth and never fulfilled. And here's the part they won't teach you in school or church. You can trace them, feel them, healed from them, because every single one left a fingerprint on your soul. But before I show you how to uncover them, you need to understand this. You are not broken. You are remembering. Most of what you're carrying doesn't even belong to this lifetime. That grief, it might be from a child you once had in another century. That fear of water, it could be the echo of a death you never consciously recall. That deep sense of unworthiness, it might not have begun with you, but it wants to end with you. So how do you know how many lives you've lived? How do you feel that number instead of guessing it like some spiritual horoscope? It starts with one quiet truth. Your body knows. Not your brain, your body. Because your cells, your breath, your energetic field, they've all been here before. When you learn to get still enough, the number reveals itself, not as a fact, not as a sentence, but as a vibration, a hum, a knowing. It's not about being psychic, it's about being present. Have you ever sat in silence and suddenly felt years of sorrow rise from your chest for no clear reason? That's a memory surfacing. A lifetime asking to be acknowledged, and with the right method you can follow that thread all the way back to its origin. You might start to notice patterns, certain dates repeating, the same struggles showing up in different relationships, a constant pull toward the same kind of pain. These are your karmic loops, and if you don't remember them, they'll repeat themselves, not to punish you, but to be healed through you. You came here not just to live, but to evolve, to complete what you once began. And every time you ignore that ache in your soul, you delay the liberation your soul has been craving for lifetimes. But you don't have to delay it any longer. Because there is a way, a method, and it's not complicated. In fact, it's so simple it's almost hard to believe. You don't need a guru. You don't need a book. You need one thing: presence. When you learn to become still, to sit with your soul without demanding answers, the answers come. The number reveals itself not as math but as emotion. You begin to feel the weight of your journey. Some say it feels like a heaviness, others like waves of clarity. You'll begin to see your life from above, as if you're watching chapters being read aloud from a book you forgot you wrote. That's not imagination, that's you, finally listening. So pause for a second, close your eyes, and ask this silently, not with your voice but with your being. How old is my soul? Then wait. You may feel a number, you may see flashes of lives, you may feel nothing at first, but something ancient begins to stir. You're opening a door, one that was sealed by disbelief, by distraction, by the noise of this modern world. But your soul has been waiting, and once you start asking, it will begin to answer, Because your soul remembers every sunset it's watched through different eyes, every hand it's held, every promise it whispered across timelines, and all of it lives inside you, right now. You may not have known how to describe it before, but now you can feel it. That pull beneath your chest isn't just emotion, it's recognition. It's the stirring of memory that doesn't belong to this single chapter you call a life. It's the echo of vows you once made under different stars. The reason you can't explain why some wounds cut deeper than they should is because they didn't begin here. They've traveled with you. That scar you can't see but always feel, it's older than your name. And the people in your life right now, the ones who trigger you the most or stir your soul in ways no words can explain, they've met you before. Maybe they loved you. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe you were the one who left. And now, the cycle continues. But you're not trapped in it. You're here to remember it, to recognize what's repeating and choose differently. Because every soul contract you made before entering this life is a mirror. It reflects the lessons you haven't completed, the healing you were born to finish. Think about it. How many times have you said, "Why does this keep happening to me?" It's not happening to you, it's happening through you. You've been drawing the same themes again and again, not as punishment, but as a request from your own soul. Resolve this so we can move on. It's why some relationships feel electric yet impossible, why you feel drawn to eras of history like you once walked those streets, why you've always felt older than your peers. You are, not just in age, but in experience. You've lived before, you've died before, and in between you've waited, planned, signed agreements with other souls, choosing to meet again, in different forms, to grow through the pain that once broke you. This is what old souls carry, not just wisdom, but weariness. You know what it feels like to walk through life with a sense of longing that nothing here seems to satisfy. You try new things, chase new goals, move to new cities, but something inside always says, "This isn't it." That's not restlessness. That's soul memory. It's the ache of remembering something you've lost but can't name. Because it's not from this time. You've stood at this threshold before. The moment when the illusion of being just a human starts to collapse. When the veil lifts just enough for you to feel your eternity again. And here you are, at the edge of remembering, so close you can taste it. But you're not here just to remember how many lives you've lived. You're here to understand why. Why you returned. Why now? Why this body? Why these wounds? Because behind the number, whether it's 12 or 112, there's a story. And that story contains your mission. It's not random. There are no random souls on earth right now, especially not the ones who feel like they don't belong. That's the sign you came from somewhere else. And you came for a reason. But here's what they never told you. You don't have to chase that reason. You just have to feel it. Because your mission isn't hidden in a job title or a role or a purpose printed on paper. It's woven into your presence, into the way you love, the way you hurt, the way you see the invisible in others. You came here to break cycles, to dissolve the echoes of lifetimes that never got closure. You came here with memory encrypted in your bones, waiting for this very moment to unlock. So let's unlock it. You don't need rituals, you don't need regression therapy, unless it calls you. What you need is space, sacred, uninterrupted, unfiltered space, to feel what's been buried. Start with silence, not the silence of a quiet room, the silence of the mind when you stop asking how and start feeling why. Ask yourself not with words but with stillness. Where is my soul aching to be heard? And then you listen. You might feel heat in your hands, a tightness in your throat. You might begin crying for no reason. That's the beginning. That's the whisper becoming a voice. That's a life rising from the archive of your soul, saying, "Remember me." And you don't have to see the details to know the truth. You'll feel the texture of that life in your emotions. You'll know when it shows you abandonment or betrayal or the pain of power misused. You'll feel shame or pride or grief with no obvious cause. That's because it's not from here, it's from there. But here's the power no one taught you. When you feel it in this body, in this life, and choose to forgive it, to speak to it, to hold it without running, it transforms, it dissolves the loop, and suddenly you're no longer reliving it, you're rewriting it. You're completing something that's waited lifetimes to be seen. This is the work, this is the method. The method isn't about time travel, it's about presence so deep it folds time inward. When you're fully present with an old wound, you're simultaneously present with the version of you that first experienced it, and in that moment, across centuries, healing occurs. Across dimensions, peace is sent backwards like light through a prism, illuminating the dark places your soul once forgot. This is why your soul keeps bringing you to the same kinds of situations. It's not cruel, it's faithful. It knows you can complete the circle. It knows you're ready now, in ways you weren't before. That's why you're watching this. That's why your hands are tingling. That's why your heart knows this is real, even if your mind resists it. Because your soul has been guiding you, whispering through synchronicities, aches, and quiet knowing. And now, the remembering begins. You can start with the number, not by thinking, by feeling. You don't ask how many lives have I lived. You ask, how much have I felt? Because each life leaves behind a signature, an emotional code. When you sit in stillness long enough, you'll start to feel them stacking behind you like shadows, like waves, like pages in a book you forgot you wrote. You might feel 3, you might feel 30, you might feel hundreds. Don't try to prove it, just trust it. Because the truth isn't measured by logic, it's recognized by resonance. And when you feel that resonance, you'll understand you've never been just one person, you've been many, and all of them are you. There are moments in your life when something inexplicable brushes against your awareness. Moments that arrive without warning, but leave you rattled. A sudden fear when you're surrounded by water even though you've never drowned. A deep unease around fire despite no memory of being burned. Or a burst of longing when you walk into a foreign city for the first time, yet it feels more like a homecoming than a vacation. This is not random. These are past life echoes, soul memories that slipped past the veil. Déjà vu isn't just your brain misfiring. It's your soul whispering, you've been here before. And not just in space, but in experience. You've lived a moment so eerily similar that it reaches across time to touch you. That chill down your spine when you meet someone's gaze and feel like you've known them forever. That's not chemistry. That's recognition. That's remembering the soul beneath the skin. Sometimes the ones who hurt us the most in this life are the ones who once saved us in another. Sometimes the ones we're drawn to without reason are the ones we once loved or left behind. This is soul recognition. It bypasses the brain entirely. It doesn't make sense because it isn't supposed to. It's older than language, older than logic. You've probably felt it before. Maybe you met someone and within minutes it felt like you were catching up, not introducing yourselves. Maybe you touched an artifact or looked at an old photo and tears welled up from nowhere. Maybe you've stood in a place you'd never been, but grief cracked open inside your chest as if something there remembered losing everything. Your mind couldn't explain it, but your soul could, because your body remembers what your mind cannot. Your emotional memory is your oldest language. It doesn't use words, it uses sensation, impression, energy. It lives in the gut reactions you can't rationalize, in the tears that fall before a single thought forms, in the dreams you wake from gasping, not knowing why, only that something ancient just rose to the surface. We've been conditioned to ignore these things, to file them under coincidence, to dismiss them as imagination. But what if your imagination is just memory without a time stamp? What if that sense of danger you feel around certain people isn't paranoia, but wisdom earned over lifetimes? What if your most irrational fears are the most truthful parts of you? Emotional memory doesn't obey time. It travels through lifetimes the way wind travels through trees, invisible but undeniably felt. You might feel it in your back, like the phantom weight of chains, or in your hands, like they've held power before and maybe misused it, or in your heart, like a sadness that has no origin but sits like a stone you can't name. This is the emotional residue of the soul. It clings not as punishment but as remembrance. It stays because you haven't yet seen it fully, understood it completely, or released it freely, and until you do, it gently, or violently, reminds you. Sometimes it speaks in the language of pain, sometimes in dreams, sometimes through the eyes of a child who seems to know more than they should, but always it's calling you home, back to your soul's full story. And that story didn't start here. So when your body tenses up during certain songs, or when a smell pulls you into a memory you know doesn't belong to this lifetime, lean in, don't pull away. That's your invitation. That's your doorway. You might never get the full picture, no dates, no names, no linear biography. But you'll get the essence, and the essence is what heals. You'll feel that this grief didn't begin with your childhood. This abandonment didn't start with your last breakup. You'll realize that what you're facing now is often the unfinished energy of who you once were, returning for resolution. You don't have to decode it all. You just have to feel it honestly, witness it bravely, offer it the one thing it's been begging for across time, acknowledgement. Because here's the truth no one told you. You don't heal by forgetting your past lives. You heal by honoring them. You are not just a name, not just a body, not even just a soul. You are a field of remembrance, vast, layered, complex, and every emotion you carry is a ripple from something much deeper. The fear that keeps you small, it may have protected you once, when speaking out cost you your life. The hesitation to love, it may have formed in a lifetime where your heart was betrayed or weaponized. The constant hunger to find home, you may have lost it again and again. But you're here now, not to repeat, to remember, because you can't release what you refuse to recognize. And the method to know how many lives you've lived isn't hidden in books. It's written in your emotions, in the way your body tightens around certain memories, in the patterns that haunt your relationships, in the themes that keep finding you, no matter how far you run. That's how the soul speaks. And when you learn to listen, really listen, it doesn't just reveal where you've been. It reveals what you came here to finish. You were never meant to live in confusion. You were meant to awaken clarity. And that clarity comes not from someone else telling you your soul's history, but from your willingness to feel it. There is power in asking the question, why does this feel so familiar? There is power in trusting your tears when they seem out of place. There is power in naming what no one else can see because your soul sees it. And there is power in knowing that everything you've ever felt, deeply, irrationally, inexplicably, is part of a much bigger story than you were told. That story is yours to reclaim right now. You've probably been called an old soul before. Maybe it was when you said something too wise for your age, or when you chose solitude over shallow noise, or when you looked at the stars and felt homesick. But being an old soul isn't just about acting mature. It's not about listening to vinyl records or reading ancient books. It's something much deeper, something spiritual. Being an old soul means your essence has journeyed through many lifetimes. It means your spirit has carried stories across centuries. You've loved, lost, died, been reborn, again and again. And each time, you've brought something back with you. You see the world differently. You always have. While others are chasing trends or distractions, you're listening. You feel the undercurrents. You sense what's not being said. You cry for things you can't explain. You feel joy more deeply, grief more fully, silence more completely. That's not hypersensitivity. That's depth, earned through experience. Because an old soul doesn't just think differently, it feels differently. You've probably felt alien in this life. Like you don't quite fit, like everyone else got a manual and you were born reading something else entirely. That's not dysfunction, that's dissonance. Soul dissonance. It's what happens when an ancient spirit is dropped into a world still obsessed with the surface. You've seen enough to know what matters. You've been through enough to see through the noise. That's why you can't stand fake conversations. That's why meaningless routines drain you. That's why crowds exhaust you and small talk feels like starvation. You hunger for the real. You want to know why you're here, what it means, where you came from, and why everything feels so damn heavy sometimes. That heaviness, it's the weight of your wisdom, not in facts, in feelings. You've learned the cost of power. You've seen what happens when love is ignored. You've tasted the loneliness of lifetimes where truth was silenced. And all of it lives in you now, as knowing, as instinct, as ache. There's a fatigue that old souls carry, a kind of spiritual tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep. It's not physical, it's karmic. It's the exhaustion of having been here too many times, of having tried to change the world before, of having carried torches in dark ages only to be burned for your life. It's the deep sigh in your spirit when you see humanity repeat its mistakes, when wars rage, when greed thrives, when hearts harden. Part of you grieves, not because it's new, but because you remember. You've seen this before, you've lived it before, and you know where it leads. That's the pain of memory. But old souls don't just carry pain. They carry compassion, not the kind you perform, the kind that lives in your bones, the kind that sees someone hurting and your whole body softens, the kind that forgives without needing an apology, the kind that holds space for others, even when no one held space for you. You don't need to be told to be kind. It's already encoded in you, because you remember what it's like to be on the other side, to be the one suffering, the one judged, the one misunderstood, and that memory has bloomed into empathy, real, lived empathy, the kind that doesn't ask for attention, the kind that simply is. That's how you know you've been here before, not through astrology, not through a label, through your love, through your weariness, through your wisdom, and yet, even with all of that, you've probably doubted yourself. You've probably wondered why you still struggle, why you still feel lost sometimes, why, if your soul is so old, your life feels so hard. Here's why. Because old souls aren't immune to challenge, they attract it. You didn't come back for an easy life, you came back for completion, for refinement, for evolution. That's why your path has been steep. That's why your wounds go deeper than most. Because you came here to heal on a level most don't even know exists. You agreed, before birth, to face patterns you hadn't yet broken, to meet souls you hadn't yet forgiven, to touch parts of yourself you once feared, and through it all, to remember, to wake up, to become the version of you that's been waiting across lifetime. That version? It's already in you. It's the you that speaks softly but sees everything. The you that loves fiercely but lets go when it's time. The you that doesn't chase validation, because it remembers its own divinity. You are not ahead or behind. You're exactly where your soul needs to be. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Because being an old soul can be lonely. You might feel misunderstood, even by people who love you. You might crave conversations that most aren't ready to have. You might wonder why your heart keeps breaking open, just to feel more of a world that seems numb. And still you remain open. Because you've learned, over lifetimes, that closing only delays the healing. You've learned that strength isn't in walls, it's in surrender. And that love isn't just a feeling, It's a force, a frequency, a choice. So if you felt different, disconnected, or even disillusioned, you're not broken, you're remembering. You're remembering what it means to live with soul awareness in a world still asleep. You're remembering how to hold truth in a society addicted to denial. You're remembering your vow to show up one more time, to try again, to love harder, to forgive deeper, to embody light, even when the world forgets what light looks like. You are not here by accident. You chose this incarnation. And yes, you chose it knowing it wouldn't be easy, because your soul has a knowing. That cannot be silenced. And that knowing is stirring again. Right now, there's a rhythm to your life that you may not fully understand yet, a pattern beneath the surface, shaping the people you meet, the pain you carry, the dreams you chase, and the lessons that keep repeating. It's not random. It's not coincidence. It's karma. But not the version you've been told. Karma is not punishment. It's not a cosmic scoreboard tallying good and bad deeds. Karma is memory in motion. It's unfinished energy, loops left open across time, choices you made, experiences you didn't complete, wounds you never healed, and wisdom you haven't yet embodied. It's not about morality. It's about momentum. What remains unresolved continues. Think of it like this. When a conversation ends abruptly, something lingers, a tension, an ache, a need to revisit what was left unsaid. Your soul does the same. When a lifetime ends with guilt, betrayal, fear, or silence, that emotion doesn't disappear. It stays like an echo, vibrating through the soul, whispering, "We're not done yet." That's karma, not as punishment, but as invitation. An invitation to revisit, to revise, to transform what once remained stuck. This is why you're drawn to certain experiences, why certain situations seem to find you, no matter how many times you try to escape them. It's not because you're cursed, it's because you're ready. Ready to bring consciousness to a pattern that was once unconscious, ready to bring love to a place where fear once lived. And nothing reveals this more clearly than the people in your life. Because karma doesn't show up in the abstract. It shows up in relationships. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same kind of person? Why the same themes play out in love, in friendship, in family? Different faces, same energy. That's not bad luck. That's a soul contract. Soul contracts are pre-birth agreements between you and other souls. Before this life began, you sat down energetically with other beings and made choices. You chose your wounds. You chose your lessons. You chose the people who would help you evolve. Sometimes through love, sometimes through pain. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't cruelty, it was divine strategy. You said, "In this life, I want to learn self-worth." And a soul replied, "Then I'll challenge it, so you'll have to remember who you are." You said, "I want to experience forgiveness," and someone offered, "Then I'll hurt you and give you the chance to free us both." It sounds harsh, maybe even unfair, but on a soul level, there is no victim or villain, only mirrors, only roles. Each one of these contracts was crafted with intention. Some were designed for healing, others for karmic balance, but all of them were written for one purpose: your awakening. That's why your deepest pain often comes from those closest to you. It's not because they're cruel, it's because they're sacred. Souls don't waste energy on surface-level encounters. When a person enters your life and changes everything, it's because they were always meant to. And here's the most beautiful part. No contract is permanent. Every contract was written in love, but not all are meant to last forever. Some are meant to be completed, others rewritten. You always have the power to end a soul contract once the lesson has been learned. That's the key. Until the lesson is received, the cycle repeats. Not to punish you, but to show you where you're still unconscious, where you're still reacting, where you're still forgetting your power. So the universe brings it back. Over and over, a different face, a different job, a different lover, but the same wound, the same ache, the same invitation. To choose differently, to see clearly, to remember that you are not powerless in the story. You are the soul writing it, and you can resolve the contract not by fighting it, but by facing it. Facing the pain you've avoided, facing the truth you've buried, facing the version of yourself that once agreed to suffer so you could finally wake up. This is where karma dissolves. Not through struggle, but through awareness. Not by escaping, but by understanding. When you see a karmic pattern for what it is, when you stop blaming others and begin reclaiming your part in the play, you free yourself. You no longer need to repeat the role. You become the one who heals it. This is how the soul evolves, not by avoiding pain, but by transforming it, not by forgetting your past lives, but by integrating them. Every time you choose forgiveness over vengeance, presence over projection, compassion over fear, you dissolve centuries of stuck energy. You unravel threads that once bound you to sorrow, and in that unraveling, you rise. You rise above the cycle. You don't just remember your lifetimes, you begin to complete them, because the goal isn't to keep returning. The goal is to become so fully awake that the loop breaks open, to reach a point where your soul no longer needs to come back just to repair what was broken, but can return if it chooses, simply to love more deeply than ever before. That is freedom. That is mastery. That is what your soul came here for. And it begins with awareness. It begins with asking, what am I still carrying? Who am I still playing this out with? And what have I agreed to, without even knowing it? Ask these questions not with fear, but with curiosity, because the answers are already within you. You'll feel it when a certain name tightens your chest, when a memory pulls at your gut, when a choice arises that feels like déjà vu. That's the contract. That's the karma. But now, you see it. And because you see it, you can finally choose something new. That's what evolution looks like. That's what healing sounds like. It's not always a breakthrough. Sometimes it's just the quiet moment when you say, I don't need to keep living this story anymore. And in that choice, a lifetime ends. A new one begins. If you've ever asked yourself, why does this keep happening to me? You're already on the edge of remembering. That question isn't just frustration. It's your soul speaking up, calling attention to something deeper, something that goes beyond this life. Because when something repeats, over and over, despite your best intentions to grow past it, it's not a coincidence, it's a pattern. A thread tied not just to your past, but to your other pasts. The ones you don't consciously remember, but feel in every cell of your being. Emotional loops are one of the clearest ways past lives reveal themselves. The same relationship dynamic, different people, the same betrayal, the same abandonment, the same need to prove yourself. You've lived that scene before, maybe 100 times, maybe in a different gender, a different land, a different body, but the feeling, that's the part that survived. It's in the way your heart clenches when someone ignores you, the way your throat closes up when you try to speak your truth, the way your stomach sinks when you're about to take a risk. It doesn't matter if there's no visible danger, your body is still reacting to something it remembers, even if your mind doesn't. And it's not just emotion. Sometimes the memories come as dreams, vivid, strange, and familiar all at once. Maybe you see yourself in clothes from another century. Maybe you're speaking a language you've never learned. Or maybe it's a place you've never been, but in the dream, it feels like home. You wake up confused, haunted even, because a part of you knows you weren't just dreaming, you were visiting. Dreams are the doorway the soul uses when your defenses are down. When your logical mind sleeps, the soul speaks. And if you've ever had a dream that felt more real than your waking life, you've already begun the process of remembering. Phobias can also carry past life residue, a fear of heights, of drowning, of enclosed spaces, a deep irrational panic when you're in situations that pose no real threat. You try to rationalize it, but it doesn't make sense. That's because it's not coming from this life. It's an echo, a scar, the soul's way of saying, this once mattered more than you know. And then there's the people. The ones who trigger you, the ones who save you, the ones you can't let go of even when everything in you says you should. You're not just meeting them for the first time. You're meeting them again. Every soul carries a signature. And when you recognize someone, not by memory, but by energy, it's because they're part of your longer story. You've danced with them in other lives, as lovers, enemies, family, teachers. You've switched roles, hurt each other, healed each other, and now the pattern continues until one of you chooses differently. That's why certain relationships feel impossible to walk away from, not because of codependency, but because of completion. Something in your soul is asking, can we finish what we started? So pause here and ask yourself this. What keeps repeating in your life? What themes keep showing up, even after you thought you outgrew them? Who shows up in your story, carrying the same energy, wearing a different face? What wound keeps pulling you back into the same lesson, no matter how far you run? These are the breadcrumbs, the signs, the evidence that your soul is trying to resolve something ancient through the life you're living right now. And this is where the method begins, not with answers, but with observation, with becoming conscious of what was once unconscious. There's a practice, a sacred, intuitive process that allows you to begin retrieving soul memories, not as stories, but as sensations, not as fantasies, but as remembrances. And it starts with a single decision to sit with your patterns instead of trying to escape them. Find a quiet space, no distractions, just you, your breath, and your willingness to feel. Let your body speak. Let the ache rise without suppressing it. Let the memories emerge, not from your mind, but from your emotional field. Breathe into the tension. Ask your body, what are you trying to show me? Then wait. Your mind may resist. It's been trained to seek logic, but your soul speaks in symbols, in visions, in feelings. You may get flashes, images, names, scenery, or you may simply feel a wave of grief you can't explain. That's okay. Let it come. Let it move through you. That's the remembering beginning to stir. Don't try to control it. Let it reveal itself in pieces. Because past life recall is not a spectacle. It's a sacred unveiling. Sometimes the most powerful memory isn't a vision, it's an understanding. A knowing in your gut that you've done this before, that you've hurt like this before, that you've loved like this before, and now you get to choose how it ends. Write down what comes, even if it doesn't make sense. Especially if it doesn't make sense. That's how the soul speaks, through the language of resonance, not reason. As the days pass, you'll notice more. The patterns become louder, the coincidences become confirmations. And one day you'll wake up and realize, you'll know how many lives you've lived. Not because someone told you, not because you read it somewhere, but because you felt it, in your tears, in your healing. In the clarity that blooms when you finally name what your soul has carried in silence. That's the method. It's not external, it's not performative, it's remembrance through feeling. And once you begin, the soul starts to open its archives, not all at once, just enough for you to heal what's been waiting, just enough to reveal what's next. And in that opening, you start to become whole again. There is a way to remember. Not through someone else telling you your past lives, but through a direct inner experience. A quiet method that opens the veil, not with force, but with invitation. This method isn't ancient because it was invented a long time ago. It's ancient because it's always been within you. And now it's ready to be awakened. Begin with your breath. Not shallow, not rushed, but slow, deep, intentional. Let your breath become the anchor that tethers you to this moment. Feel the way your chest rises and falls. Feel the way your body softens as your awareness deepens. With every exhale, imagine the surface world dissolving, the thoughts, the noise, the ego, and with every inhale, feel yourself sinking deeper into the space behind your thoughts. This is where your soul speaks. Close your eyes. Place your palms gently on your heart and ask this question, not out loud, but through your whole being. How many lives have I lived? Don't try to answer. Just feel. Feel the waves of sensation that arise. Feel the images that begin to flicker. You may not hear words. You may not see full scenes. But something will begin to move, a pulse, a pressure, a pull. That's your soul responding. This is the beginning of the soul count. It's not an intellectual calculation. It's an energetic sensing. It's a vibration that emerges from your heart space. A number that comes not from thought but from resonance. For some, it arrives instantly, like a whisper. For others, it rises slowly, like a tide. You may feel the number. You may see it. You may simply know. And if no number comes right away, don't judge it. That too is an answer. Because the more you force, the less your soul can speak. But when you sit with the question in stillness, night after night, something begins to unlock. And then Atkins. A number that doesn't feel like guessing, it feels like truth. But this isn't just about knowing how many lives you've lived. That's only the doorway. What matters more is what you do with the knowing. Because with the number comes the impressions. Visions may begin to surface. Fragments of scenes, faces, landscapes. Don't panic. Don't analyze. Just witness. But here's the part no one teaches. Not everything you see is literal. Sometimes your soul speaks through symbols. You may see yourself as a bird because in one lifetime you were enslaved and flight meant freedom. You may see fire, not because you died in flames, but because you lived through revolution. You may see oceans, deserts, or stars, not as geographic facts, but as spiritual metaphors for what your soul endured. This is where discernment matters. Symbolic visions feel like art, fluid, poetic, rich with meaning, but soul memories feel raw, unpolished, vivid in their emotion. They come with texture, with taste, with grief. You don't just see them, you relive them. That's how you know. If a scene brings you to tears for no reason, if you feel it more than you see it, if your body reacts with chills, pressure, or breathlessness, that's a soul memory. Write it down immediately. That's the second part of the method, intuitive journaling. As soon as your meditation ends, let the pen move. Don't think. Don't edit. Don't try to make sense of it. Let your soul speak. Let your hand be the vessel. You'll be amazed at what comes through. Words you don't use. Names you've never heard. Places you've never been, but somehow remember. This is the ritual, the sacred loop of asking, listening, receiving, and recording. Do this consistently, not as a chore, but as communion. Each session brings more. Each breath pulls back another layer. And over time a picture begins to form, not always in perfect detail, but in perfect truth. You begin to see your soul's arc, not just lives but lessons, not just events but evolution. And that brings us into something even deeper, what to do with all of this. Because remembering your past lives isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning. Now that you know how many lives you've lived, now that you've felt the truth stirring inside you, what does it mean for this life, this moment, this version of you? It means you're no longer operating from amnesia. It means the patterns that once ruled you can now be understood. It means you can meet your present not as a victim of circumstances, but as the architect of transformation. Let's say you discover you've lived 50 lives, or 100. That number carries weight, not just in curiosity, but in karmic implication. Because with every life comes residue, unfinished lessons, emotional signatures that now influence the way you respond to life. But the beauty is, you now have the power to choose differently. You may notice that after each meditative session something changes. You handle conflict with more grace. You stop being triggered by the same people. You no longer fall for the illusion of lack, because deep down you remember abundance. You remember strength. You remember freedom. This is the soul's intelligence finally activating in the body. You're reclaiming wisdom you already earned. That's what remembering does. It doesn't just inform you, it empowers you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and begin asking, what is this trying to teach me? Again, you stop fearing the unknown because you've been through the unknown countless times and made it here. You stop identifying with your wounds and start honoring them as markers on the path. And most importantly, you begin to live with reverence. Reverence for every challenge, every connection, every emotion, knowing that all of it is part of a much longer journey, a soul journey, one that didn't start with your birth and won't end with your death. You are not just a person. You are a continuum of love, pain, wisdom, and power, wrapped in skin for a short while, and now, you know. Now that you know how many lives you've lived, the real question becomes, what are you going to do with it? Because the number's not the treasure is what the number points to. It tells you one thing above all else. You've been learning. Through lifetimes of joy and lifetimes of suffering, through wealth and poverty, through loss and legacy, your soul has been gathering experience. Not randomly, but with a purpose. You didn't come here just to remember. You came here to fulfill something, to complete something, to carry out a sacred assignment that stretches far beyond this single lifetime. And once you've begun to remember the lives you've lived, a deeper question arises. What is the theme that's been with you across all of them? Maybe it's the pursuit of truth. Maybe it's the struggle for freedom. Maybe it's the art of love. Real love. The kind that transcends form, time, and fear. There is always a primary theme. A soul mission. A thread that runs through everything. Look at your life right now as if it were one page in a much larger book. What have you always been pulled toward? What lessons keep repeating? What archetypes do you keep playing out? These clues reveal the curriculum your soul chose. You are not here by mistake. Your sensitivities, your struggles, your strengths, they are not random. They are the tools your soul brought with it to finish the work it started. And here's the beauty. Once you become aware of your soul's theme, life begins to make more sense. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, how can I evolve this? You begin to see that the emotional baggage you've been carrying isn't just from this life. Some of it is centuries old. It's ancestral, karmic, soul deep. But the fact that it's with you now means that you are the one meant to release it. That burden isn't here to break you. It's here to complete a cycle, and when you understand that, you stop seeing your pain as a prison and start seeing it as a doorway. Every emotion that rises within you is a chance to heal not just yourself, but the you that came before. You become the bridge between lifetimes, and it's through that bridge that evolution happens, because soul evolution is not something that just happens to you. It's not automatic. It's conscious. It's intentional. It's a choice made moment by moment. You evolve when you choose presence over pattern. You evolve when you forgive what was once unforgivable, not because it was okay, but because you're no longer willing to carry the weight of it. You evolve when you stop reenacting the old story and start rewriting it, not as a victim, but as the author. You evolve when you recognize that this life, this exact moment, is the most powerful portal your soul has ever stood in front of. Because this is the moment you get to decide whether you'll keep reacting from the past or responding from remembrance, to decide whether your old wounds will define you or refine you, to decide whether this will be just another incarnation or the one where everything changes. And let's be honest, you didn't come this far to repeat the same cycle again. Your soul didn't drag all this wisdom into a body just to be asleep again. You came here to awaken, to embody what you've remembered, to let the echoes of your past lives become instruments of your liberation, not anchors of your suffering. So, what does that look like in practice? It looks like noticing when an emotional trigger arises and instead of reacting, asking yourself, is this mine? Or is this older than me? It looks like entering a difficult relationship and instead of playing the same role, choosing to shift the script. It looks like taking a breath before responding because you feel the karmic weight of the moment and you know that how you choose now could change not just this life, but many that might have followed. That is soul work. And it is not always easy, but it is sacred. And every time you step into it with awareness, you create ripples in your timeline, in your lineage, in your very DNA. Science is only just beginning to understand what your soul has always known, that emotion is stored in the body and trauma travels through bloodlines. But what they haven't yet fully said is this: healing travels too. And you, by remembering, become the source of that healing. You change the pattern not only for yourself but for the future version of you and for every soul your energy will touch. Because when you remember who you are, when you remember how many lifetimes you've endured and why, you stop fearing the present moment. You realize it's not here to test you. It's here to graduate you, to show you that what once broke you no longer controls you, that what once defined you has been transformed, that what once repeated endlessly now finds its ending through your courage. This is how you step into mastery, not by becoming perfect, but by becoming present. Present to the wisdom of your wounds, present to the sacredness of your sensitivity, present to the knowing that your soul has been here many times before, but this time you are awake, and that changes everything. Now that you've remembered, now that you've begun to see the invisible thread that's guided your soul across lifetimes, there's one final step that cannot be skipped. Release. Because awareness without release becomes a burden. You weren't meant to carry all your past lives on your back. You were meant to carry their wisdom, not their wounds. You were meant to integrate the lessons, then let the weight go. And the way you release karmic imprints is not through struggle, not through reliving the pain. It's through energy, through presence, through forgiveness. Not the kind of forgiveness the world talks about, transactional and hollow, but real forgiveness, soul-level forgiveness, the kind that breaks contracts and ends cycles. You see, every time you hold on to a wound, every time you replay the betrayal, rehearse the rejection, relive the loss, you're keeping the imprint alive, you're feeding the memory with your energy, and that energy echoes forward. But when you bring compassion to that memory, when you breathe love into it, something changes, the energy rewrites itself, the loop dissolves, the contract ends. Forgiveness is how you reclaim your soul's power, and it begins with awareness. So take a breath, let yourself soften, and ask, gently, honestly, completely, who do I need to forgive in this life? What face still lives in my mind, holding space in my heart through pain? Who am I still tethered to, not through love but through unfinished emotion? And now go deeper. Who do I need to forgive in other lives? You may not know their names, you may not recall their faces, but your body knows. You'll feel them. A tightening in the chest, a heaviness in the gut, a surge of emotion without reason. That's the imprint rising to the surface, not to haunt you, but to be healed. So here's the ritual. You don't need incense, you don't need sound bowls, all you need is your willingness. Close your eyes. Sit with your spine tall, your hands resting on your heart and your belly. Begin to breathe slowly, rhythmically. Feel your body, let it soften. Now imagine a long cord, made of light, stretching from your heart outward into the unseen. Follow it. See where it leads. Notice who stands on the other end. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe it's just a silhouette. Maybe it's a sensation. That's okay. Don't force clarity, just feel. This cord represents a soul tie, a karmic thread, a place where energy still flows between you and them. And now say, not with your voice, but with your soul. I see you. I honor our journey. I forgive you, and I release you. Feel those words move like ripples through the cord. See the light begin to shift, softer, cleaner, clearer. Then, with love, not anger. Imagine the cord gently dissolving, like mist in sunlight. You don't need to sever it violently. You don't need to curse it. You only need to release it. And if emotion rises, let it. That's the imprint being cleared. That's your soul unbinding itself. You may need to do this with more than one person. You may feel multiple cords extending from your heart, your throat, your spine. Some are rooted in this lifetime. Others go much deeper. Don't rush. This is sacred. Each time you release a cord, you free a piece of your energy. You call it back home, to your center, to your truth, to now. This is energetic sovereignty, and it is your birthright. Because you cannot fully step into who you are becoming while carrying the ghosts of who you were. You cannot become the highest version of your soul while still entangled in old contracts, old betrayals, old guilt, old roles. Release does not mean you forget what happened. It means you remember with peace instead of pain. It means you choose clarity over resentment, compassion over control, wholeness over history. It means you finally say to yourself, I no longer need to hold this. And then you let it go. You don't have to wait for closure. You don't need the other person to change. You don't need justice to be served. You need only to remember the truth. That your energy is sacred. That your soul came here to evolve, not to be trapped in someone else's shadow. That the pain that once defined you no longer has to. Forgiveness doesn't free them. It frees you. And in that freedom, lifetimes of karma are dissolved. Loops are closed. Patterns begin to fade. You may notice it in small ways. You stop dreaming of them. You stop rehearsing what you wish you'd said. You stop feeling pulled into the same dynamic again and again. That's the soul reclaiming itself. That's you becoming light. Not because the past didn't matter, but because it no longer controls you, and now you are ready. Ready to step into the next chapter of your soul's journey, untethered, unburdened, and more you than you've ever been. You didn't come here to suffer. You came here to remember, and then release. And now you have. Now that the cords have been released, now that your energy is returning home, there's something beautiful waiting beneath the weight you've carried. A treasure. Because while pain leaves an imprint on the soul, so does power. And buried within the folds of your many lives are gifts you haven't even begun to rediscover. This is what no one tells you. That your soul doesn't just carry wounds from past incarnations. It carries wisdom, abilities, sacred memory. You've been more than what you are now. A healer, a seer, a warrior, a guide, a mystic, a poet, a priestess, a protector. You've studied ancient teachings, spoken dead languages, walked sacred lands barefoot, your body humming with truth. And though you may have forgotten the names, the rituals, the faces, the essence remains. The soul never forgets what it has mastered. And when the time is right, when the mind is quiet and the heart is open, those gifts rise again. Not as fantasy, but as remembrance. So if you've ever found yourself drawn to skills you never learned, if you've picked up an instrument and your hands just knew, if you've opened a book on healing or astrology or ancient history and something deep inside whispered, yes, this is familiar, that's not random, that's reawakening. There is a frequency that echoes through all things that are true for your soul. When you find it, something stirs. A shiver, a tear, a sense of home. That's your sign, your calling card from another time. Skeptical. It wants evidence, proof, permission. But the soul speaks through feeling, through resonance, through the certainty that arrives without explanation. You must learn to trust that knowing. When you speak something profound and feel a rush of energy in your chest, that's a gift returning. When you offer comfort and the other person says, "How did you know what I needed?" That's not intuition, that's memory. When your hands move across a canvas or a journal or someone's shoulders and you lose track of time, that's your soul remembering its own magic. These are not new gifts, they are ancient. And all you're doing now is removing the layers that buried them. Doubt, conditioning, fear of being seen. Because many of us, in other lives, were punished for our gifts. We were silenced, banished, labeled, killed, and so, without knowing why, we hid ourselves in this life too. We made ourselves small, we denied the power in our voice, our hands, our presence. But the world you live in now needs that power again. And you didn't come here to stay hidden. You came to reclaim what has always been yours. So how do you access it? Start by noticing what you're drawn to, not as a trend but as a truth. What topics ignite your curiosity? What skills feel natural even if you've never studied them? What emotions rise when you enter sacred spaces? What comes alive in you when you're near water, mountains, fire, animals, stars? These are activators, memory triggers. Pay attention. Then, in your quiet moments, during meditation, in nature, in the seconds before sleep, ask, "What is trying to return to me?" and listen. Listen with your whole being. You may receive images. You may feel your hands move instinctively. You may be led to books, people, or places that spark a deep remembrance. Follow it, even if it makes no sense. Especially if it makes no sense. Because your soul's wisdom is not linear, it's layered, symbolic, vast. And the more you follow those intuitive breadcrumbs, the more your gifts will return, and with them, your power. Not the kind of power that dominates, not control, not superiority, but ancient, quiet, sovereign power. The kind that radiates from within, the kind that speaks when you enter a room, even if you say nothing. The kind that heals others simply by being. That power is your birthright. It was never lost, only sleeping. And now, it is waking up. So, trust yourself. Trust the language that your soul speaks, even if no one else understands it yet. Because you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to remember, and to embody what you've remembered. You are here to walk through this world carrying the invisible knowledge of 1,000 lifetimes, and letting it move through your hands, your words, your eyes. You are here to be a living archive of soul wisdom, and no one else can do it quite like you. So ask yourself, what have I always known without knowing how? What is returning to me now? Say yes, the floodgates open, and the gifts that once lay dormant begin to bloom again, like flowers remembering the sun, like voices finding their way back into song. You are not becoming powerful, you are powerful, you always have been, you just forgot. But now, you remember, and that changes everything. There is a library that holds everything you've ever been, every thought you've ever had, every heartbeat, decision, heartbreak, triumph, every lifetime, stored like chapters in an eternal manuscript. It's not made of paper, it's made of light, of energy, of vibration. This is the Akashic record, the soul's blueprint, and whether you've known it or not, you've touched it before, in dreams, in déjà vu, in those sudden moments of clarity when everything makes sense, even if only for a second. This is where your past lives live, not in books, but in you, in your field, in the subtle frequencies that wrap around you like an energetic fingerprint. And you don't need anyone else to access it. You are your own reader. You are the gatekeeper. All it takes is presence. So let yourself imagine now, just for a moment, that you're walking through that library, rows of golden light stretching beyond sight. The air hums with familiarity, every aisle a memory, every beam a lifetime, and as you walk you pause in front of one volume, glowing slightly more than the others. You place your hand on its cover, and you know this is the life you're living now, but around it you feel them. The others, the lives that led here, the roads you took to get to this crossroad, the souls who walked beside you then, many of whom are with you now. You feel the weight, the wisdom, the weariness, and then the power. Because in this moment, standing between all you've been and all you could still become, you realize something. You're the author now. You're the one holding the pen. And this chapter, this life, is not just another story. It's the pivot point, the one that was always meant to tie the threads together, to finish what began centuries ago, to bring closure where there's been chaos, to bring light where you once lived in shadow. This is your life, and it is sacred, not because it's perfect, but because it's the culmination of thousands of experiences filtered through one sacred opportunity, this moment, right here, right now. The remembering has brought you home, not to a place, but to your power. You've remembered how many lives you've lived and what they were trying to teach you. You've felt the pain that traveled with you, and you've released it. You've heard the whispers of your gifts, and you've invited them back. You've stood in front of your patterns and dared to ask, what if this ends with me? And now, it does. This is where the old timeline fractures, where the soul contracts are fulfilled, where you stop living as a reaction to the past and start creating from wholeness. You no longer need to carry guilt from lifetimes ago. You no longer need to fear the power you once held or the love you once lost. You no longer need to repeat the same wounds, hoping someone else will finally do it differently, because you are the someone else. You are the final draft. You are the legacy of your own evolution. So walk forward now, not as someone searching, but as someone knowing. Knowing that everything you've ever needed is already inside of you. Knowing that your soul is eternal. Knowing that the number of lives you've lived is not a sentence, it's a sign. A sign that you've returned again and again, not to suffer but to transform. And this life is your masterpiece. Not because it's easy, but because you are now awake inside of it. So ask yourself one final question. If this life is the one that ties them all together, how do you want to write the ending? The pen is already in your hand, and the next word is yours.